writing down the family history from what you were telling us.
Yes.
And the Tarbert Loch Fyne, they were in a croft.
That's not that lot.
No, it's the other lot.
Yes.
But do you know the croft?
Yes, I do.
So you could go there and know which one it was?
No, it's now a guest house.
Is it?
I think so, or some kind of small hotel or something, or certainly let out.
Right. But how would you know?
Is it on Loch Fyne itself, or is it?
No, it's back a bit.
Right.
It's.
Have you been?
What?
Have you been?
Oh, many times.
But more recently, sort of.
Oh no, recently once.
Right. But you could locate it.
Oh yes, and so could you. It's behind a lot of modern houses which have been built in front. You can see it's almost on the hill behind, and it's a little old croft behind, almost like a development in front. So those fields where my grandmother used to take the lunch out to the workers, which she did. She was a little girl there. As you may know, she was brought up there. And she used to be given the lunch all packed up in a basket with a great big white cloth over.
Oh, wonderful.
And she took it down to the workers.
What were they working as? Just on the crop?
Well, whatever the crop was.
Yeah.
And they would eat it, and she'd bring back the empty basket.
As a child, how funny.
And
how
Sarah has a friend who lives in Tarbert Loch Fyne.
Ah, so you've got pictures of the house.
Yeah,
Presumably.
and you and I went to a burial ground as well, didn't we?
Yes, we did. And we went to the church.
And we went to the
What,
church.
in Tarbert? So
Yes.
The
there's
church, is
family graves in
the
Tarbert?
church is of particular interest because my grandmother had a beautiful singing voice.
Sarah.
Yes, her name was Sarah. But she sang in the choir in the church, but also solos because she was so good. I mean, size of a village, you don't know what so good was, but she did.
Yes.
And she sang there, and my grandfather, who was Irish, was passing through. He was a saddler, and he was a peripatetic journeyman saddler, and he was passing through, and he went to church.
Tom.
Yes, he was called Tom. Thomas, really, because Tom was the son.
Right.
But he was passing through, and he went to church. And here was this girl, who he thought was beautiful, with the most beautiful voice. He often said it was like, what did he say? It was like angels, like an angel. And she was singing. And he sat in his pew and said to himself, I'm going to marry that girl.
And you remember him telling you the story?
No, I didn't know him.
No. Oh.
No. But it was a well-known story in the family.
Right.
And he went on to marry her, and that was my grandmother and grandfather.
Oh, that was so. They were your yes. You did know him then?
No, I didn't know either of my grandfathers.
Did you not? Why not?
Dead.
They died early.
No, they died normally, but I was born much later, and in Hong Kong.
Yes.
And Tessa was asking who was Jim's mother.
Different family.
Yes, I know, different family, yeah.
Jim's mother.
What was she called?
Isabella.
Isabella. And grandfather?
Isabella Ralston. And she must have been
Isabella
Ingalls.
married a Ralston.
Married a Ralston.
So that bit I don't think we got in
The
that
Ralston,
family
the Ralston
tree.
bit all had her husband and her husband's father both had grocers' shops in and around Glasgow.
Whose husband is Bella?
Yes.
Yes.
Her husband was called Alexander, and she called him Sandy.
Yes.
And I remember her saying, Sandy would be furious. Sandy was dead long ago.
And a shop, what sort of shop in Glasgow?
Grocer's shop.
Grocers, right.
And who was the saddler then?
The other
That was the
grandfather.
other
That was the other
family.
one.
That was Tom.
So were they there at the same time in Glasgow as saddler and grocer?
I'd have to look that up.
Okay.
Because I think we've got a family tree with Tom the Saddler and Loch Fyne and Sarah.
That's
and
all the
then
Stuarts.
All the Stuarts. We've not got Isabella, the grocer's wife.
Well, the Ralstons are another story.
No, but we should write that family down.
But
We
funnily
haven't got that
enough,
one.
one of them came from Jura. They were all part of the islands and
Oh,
highlands.
right, Jura as well, right. And tell me about Tom. Came from Ireland, but he was just doing business.
No, Tom was an Irishman, came from Ireland.
That's what she just said.
Yes, but he just happened to be there. It wasn't that they
Yes, he
had
was
to leave.
travelling
It wasn't
through
nothing to do with the
He
potato
was a journeyman
famine.
saddler. He was doing saddling.
Yes, nothing to do
making
with
saddles.
the potato famine. I don't know when it was. But
No, nothing.
Nothing
It
to do
wasn't
with
back
that.
to 1850.
Cool. Yeah, 1840.
So that's the Stuarts, and
No, he was a saddler. Yes, he was a Stuart.
He was a Stuart.
Called Tom Stuart.
Yeah, and then you get Jim coming in, who's the son of Isabella and Sandy.
And Sandy.
Brought up in Glasgow.
Alexander, and that's why one of the boys
He
killed
met
at Gallipoli was called Alec.
after Sandy.
It was his son.
And Jim met Pla.
Yes, Sarah.
How? So another Sarah, the daughter of Sarah.
Oh,
Sarah, the
right.
daughter of Sarah.
Jim was on leave from Hong Kong. This is a long time later. This is
Yes.
50 years later, or 30 years later. He was on leave, and they all kept having one look at a girl and saying, "Going to marry her."
Yes.
They were very keen on this sort of thing, or whether that's the way the myth has come down
Yes.
through the family.
Yes.
I think it's probably that.
And so he was on leave
He
from
was
Hong
on
Kong.
leave from Hong Kong.
He was in education in Hong Kong.
Yes, he was teacher.
Teacher.
That's how he went out as a teacher.
Yeah. And Pla was a teacher. Sarah.
What? Oh, he
Sarah.
fathered.
No,
Sarah.
Pla was the
Pla.
teacher.
Yes. Oh,
Ollie
yes.
was the teacher.
Yes, yes.
And he said, "That's the girl I want to marry."
No.
Whisked her off to Hong Kong. No.
Yes, something like that. He came home, and my mother said, that's my mother, said, he was so good looking as an old man that I knew, and so dapper.
He certainly was dapper.
And Isabel said, far too dapper for his own good.
And then what about Net and Meg? Other side, they're your
They're Tom
mother's
Stuart's.
family.
They're Tom Stuart's children. They were all Stuarts. Ned, I've got some lovely pictures there. Ned and Meg and Sarah. And Tom and Alice.
Oh yes, because all those five are in Jim's family.
Yeah.
And now that's the other. So
No,
Ned and
and all
Meg.
that five were Stuarts. They
Yeah,
all
yeah.
came
No,
months.
that's seven up there.
Oh yes,
Yes.
I don't know
Are
what
Jim's there.
Yes.
Those
Yes.
lot.
Yes.
So Net and Meg are come down from Tom
Yes,
and Sarah.
and has a brother called Tom, which made it extra complicated.
Yes. Moved from Lochfine to
And the brother
Glasgow.
Tom, And the brother Tom, my mother's brother Thomas,
Yes.
never did very well at school at all. So his twin sisters helped him through, passed all his exams with the help of them, and my mother. They all stood and helped Tom through his exams. Tom emigrated to America, bought a whole lot of Angora
goats, yeah,
bred from them, and became a millionaire.
and made a mint.
Absolutely. And all that money that we got fairly recently was a little bit of what he left behind.
All that.
Well, I got 30,000.
Yes, we didn't.
And I think, there were a lot of us who got 30,000 or bits of 30,000.
No.
We didn't
get
get any. We
30,000,
didn't get
nothing
anything because you
like
got it all.
Oh, I got it all.
Yeah.
Yes, you should have given 10,000 to
Yeah,
Sarah.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
So, there were just three. Who were your mum and Net
There were
and
five
Meg
of
and
them.
who? Five.
Net
So
and
who were the
Meg,
others?
twins
Net
first.
and Meg.
Brought up in,
You're fine.
yes, no,
Tarbert.
Glasgow.
Tarbert.
Tarbert.
no.
No.
What's the place south of Talbot?
Where Beryl comes from and all that.
What? No, it's a big town.
Helensburgh.
No, that's miles along the coast.
No, I just-
Campbellton,
William.
Campbellton is.
No, that's further along. Anyway, I think it's at the end of all the locks.
Open.
No, that's off. That's off a bit.
Fort William.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
That's miles away.
They
Wait
started,
while I just recycle Scottish towns.
they started their life. The twins started their life in Fort William.
Oh, did they? Right.
I think
Yes.
they were born there
Yes.
in 1890,
Yes.
and then
And they're the oldest, the twins. Meg
Yes.
and Meg are the oldest, yes.
and their father was a saddler. Remember?
He's Tom.
Yes, lots of Toms. He was one.
If you say Tom or Sarah to anything, that's pretty much covers it all.
Tom the journeyman was their father.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then they moved to Glasgow,
Yes.
and somehow or other, how they did it these days, he bought a shop,
Yes.
and he had a shop in Sauchiehall Street, which was remembered in my lifetime by a lot of people.
Sadlery.
Yes.
Called Stewart's. or
Yes,
something,
Stewart's.
Right.
And he had in the front of his shop, or the middle of it, my mother used to say, a model of a horse, so they could try on saddles
Yes, yes. yes.
and so on. It was part of the
Yeah.
equipment of a saddler. And my mother and her sisters used to be taken along there as a treat and be allowed to sit on the horse.
Oh.
Mhm.
And there was the twins, and then your mum,
Yes, and then Tom,
another Sarah, and then
Tom,
other
who went and bought the goats in
Yes.
Australia, America.
And then who was the fifth?
Nia, Alice.
Alice,
oh, yes,
yeah.
Baby.
Baby,
Yes,
yes.
Much
Alice, very
later.
spoiled,
Yes.
married Maya Galpin.
Yes. And much later. She was much
Much
younger than the
later.
rest.
They
Yes.
were all in their teens when
Yes.
she was born.
Yeah.
And I think as a result they spoiled her.
Mm.
And that's why she was so greedy and needy somehow. She always wanted everything, and
Mm.
she had to have the best, and she needed a nicer one, and
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
well, it was because she was spoiled by these sisters.
Yeah. I remember Net and Meg much better than Ollie. I
Yes,
didn't know her very well.
yes, no,
And she died did she die early?
She did
died
die
when
young.
we were little.
In her
wasn't
60s,
In
yeah.
her 60s,
Ollie.
Ollie.
Yeah.
yes, she
What
had a
did she die of?
defective heart,
Oh, did she?
She had a hole in the heart when she was born.
Did she?
Mm.
So all
but
her
they
life
didn't
she
deal
was...
with it in those days.
No.
And the specialist said, tell her to grow up and live a normal life, and she'll live a good life.
Yeah.
And she lived to over 60.
So, but she was then, well, yes, because she
My
was,
mother.
and she went to Hong Kong and
Oh yes, and played tennis.
everything. So she did you know she had it when you were little?
Yes, she knew she had it. Well, she knew she had a murmur.
Mm. So she must have just experienced it
No, and you
from
could.
heart. or something.
When I first, David and I were courting, and I put my head on his chest, I said, "There's something wrong with your heart," and he said, "There's nothing wrong with my heart," and I said, "I can hear it. It's not going boom, boom, boom. It's going boom, bitty boom, bitty boom, bitty boom, bitty boom." It was my mother's heart with a hole.
And you were used to her heart.
Yeah.
How funny. But she could live a completely normal life. Oops, that's clever. And then, did she just die suddenly? How did she die?
She was in hospital when you got on the boat
Yeah.
to Africa, and she says she must have.
Yeah,
she had
died of
bronchitis. She had
bronchial
bronchitis.
pneumonia. She smoked too much.
And she died in hospital?
Yes,
Yes.
because you were on the boat and you got the message when we
Yes.
went on to Africa.
Oh no, so you didn't.
I'd
you
said
turned
goodbye
back?
to her. I'd said goodbye to her.
She knew she was dying. You think?
Yeah. Well,
Did
she
she?
knew
She knew she was very ill.
Really? Okay. So that must have been in 54?
Two?
Two?
When were you born?
55.
55.
What's her name?
No, I knew. No, it was a lot. It was in her. It must have been in the 1960s. So I knew her.
Yes. Well, I knew her, but only very little because when we came back to England.
No,
she
but
was
you
still alive.
were younger. She
Yes.
knew her quite well.
Did you? Yes.
Well, not that well because we were in Africa. We only came
Yeah.
back on leave that often.
Yeah, I didn't.
Didn't come back
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because we were all away as well.
Yeah.
But she was
That
still
was the
alive when
trouble.
we came back to UK in 1962.
Right. 63 was when you had the crash on the ice, and was that the journey when
Yes. No, that was going out later.
that wasn't saying goodbye to her.
Yes, it might have been.
I think it might have been the same time. Yeah.
Whose tummy was that?
That was Tessa, not her tummy, just going da 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 da.
I was going, trying to.
I thought you were something wrong with your
think-
guts.
No, my guts are fine.
Okay, I'm switching off
Please
now.
go